Hey Hamster, got a new game for you to check out.
What is this? Nier Automata. Hey, isn't this a sequel or something? Don't I need to play the others first?
No?
Good, because I don't care.
Who does, am I right?
So you're telling me in order to defend the last of humanity against alien robots, humans created an army of cyborg sex dolls?
Hell yeah.
There's a reason why we don't build things like tanks to look like Playboy models. This is completely impractical. Now that I think about it, tanks do kind of resemble massive dicks. Did you catch the 2B name reference? It's like from Shakespeare, where the dude with the skull is all like, to be or not to be and stuff. Because 2B is supposed to be emotionless, but the game's like, does she have emotions though? Because yes, she does. They all do. In fact, they hit you over the head with how jam-packed full of emotion the androids are, continually making the very question redundant and honestly cringeworthy. Huh. And that's all they need to do to get dimwit emo 12-year-olds who didn't pay attention in literature class to confused forced illusion with good writing. And for the record, it comes from Hamlet. Oh man, I thought it was Shakespeare. Looks like Square Enix touched this with their dirty little fingers, so I'm guessing it's an RPG? Kinda, but it's also made by Platinum Games. Ah, so it's also a hack and slash game. And a bullet hell shooter. And open world? But is it fun? Oh my, glad you asked that question. Yes, if you love zoning out to brain-numbingly simple repetitive combat, otherwise, no. Here's why. You can literally avoid anything ever by just hitting R2. So mash that bad boy and you'll never die. Equipped auto healing and auto item use skills on top of that and you'll straight up have to try to die. You can also equip skills that heal you as you kill enemies, making it even more stupidly impossible to die. Then constantly hold R1 to shoot your own stream of infinite ammo, so even during perfect evasion and healing, you'll always be dealing damage. But what about when you're flying in bullet hell shooter mode instead of doing melee combat on foot? You still have infinite ammo, perfect dodging abilities, and all of your equipped skills. This game needs an absolute miracle to kill you at any point if you know what you're doing. Okay, well, hacky slash games don't have to be hard to be fun, right? True, but the grind and satisfaction of mowing down enemies dies pretty quickly when you realize how OP you are and how insignificant your level and items gained through battle matter in the end. You still agreed, so I'm gonna take that as a small victory. You know, after playing this, I realized why people don't make bullet hell shooters in 3D. Why is that? They don't work. These environments are all vast and empty. It's a post-apocalyptic theme, man. Don't bash it. Now, hold on. I'm saying in addition to there being long stretches of vast open, nothing between points of interest, the environments themselves are underdeveloped visually with terrible LOD, awkward unpolished collider walls, and shallow enemy variety. I didn't notice any of that stuff. You're digging way too deep into the parts they didn't expect you to be looking at. Is that why the only well-modeled and animated thing in the game is 2B and her French-made BDSM porno getup taking you straight to upskirt town? I tell you, all I was looking at were her 2Bs. Oh, come on! She's as flat as this game's narrative. Oh yeah, spicy segue! Cell 5. Spoilers! Now, I gotta say, people love this game for its story. But it can't be for its actual plot though, right? It's gotta be them confusing the setting or themes instead. All the plot is a series of unrelated fetch quests, killing the occasional problematic robots and underdeveloped side characters. Nothing of note happens until about 20 hours into the game, where the game literally makes you replay the whole thing over again as your cringy, whiny teenage sidekick 9S. But after that, you finally get to play some cool segments where your space base blows up and a virus takes out your assault units. But even that doesn't amount to anything to the main story. There was literally zero character development in these characters, who were all, quite obviously, named after their questionable sentience. The only real development happens at the very end with your pods of all things. Yes, your floating little talking robo-guns get more character development in a few lines than any single character in the entirety of the game. I mean, it's pretty cool how they start developing emotions themselves to start contradicting their own orders. After, it's far too late to avoid another outcome in a completely pointless attempt that any computer would have realized. But the fact that they do it anyway is a clear sign of baby's first steps to character development, and their pointless attempts show that having emotions does nothing but do damage to the androids they were assigned to protect. Yeah, take that, real storytelling right there! And the rest of it? Horrendous. Couldn't you be more specific? Since we don't have time, here's a faster way to get a more in-depth analysis of the narrative in full. Pull up a video showing the game's story in its entirety. Pause that video every 30 seconds and replay the next 5 from this one. Really? Okay, sure, it's probably written by a horny teenage drama queen with a hard-on for meaningless exposition. But the story wasn't meant to be the strong suit. They don't want us to be taking this seriously, right? I mean, this attempt at writing and character development is so amateur, they have to be self-aware of how bad it is, right? I've been waiting this whole time to say this. To be. No. Or not to be. That is the question. Oh my god, please make it stop! What? Oh, that music? Yeah, this track gets really annoying really fast. It's not just that. Every track has been either completely forgettable or certifiable ear rape. Nah, man, it gets better, really. Yeah, well, you let me know when it does. Better? Is your disinterest in challenging gameplay only surpassed by your complete disregard for things like narrative and character development? Do you like games just because they're different, weird, or just because they come packaged with shameless sex appeal? Do the toxic, trashy comments below sound like the kind of person you aspire to be after playing the next pretentious AAA dribble? If you play games only to follow the red main objective dot and mash buttons, then look no further. You know what? Forget it. In the end, I still willingly played the game completely. I guess I'm just super conflicted with the presentation and gameplay because of how much people blindly swoon over this game like Toby Fox fanboys. The positive gamer in me gives Nier Automata a 7 out of 10 for having a unique setting, occasional moments of temporary awe, and clever immersion mechanics like hacking combat and CPU chips to edit your gameplay to your playstyle. The critical gamer in me gives Nier Automata a 4 out of 10 for its non-existent narrative, easily cheesed combat, poor environment, and character variety and placement, as well as a general lack of creative level design. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Nier Automata in the comments below. Remember, if you don't keep an open mind to criticism, you're just playing with yourself. Llama fights. What? Why?
You see, I want to play a game.
Pokemon X and Y. But why these two? X and Y was one of the better generations. Come on, let's play them. But they still kind of suck. Oh, come on, this is when they made the big jump to 3D. And when they started showing warning signs of what's to come. No. Just these. We're only gonna talk about these. Wow! The new Pokemon has some substantial changes for the better. Pokemon are in 3D! Wow! Maybe Game Freak isn't a money-grubbing disgrace to video gaming after all. Celebratory freeze frame! This is where it all began. But they're still good. We can't blame X and Y for them. No, but we should have known. The signs were there. What signs? The game itself is as mediocre as it's always been. Awkward, locked overhead camera, terrible user interface, as well as grandfathering over all the bad hardware limiting decisions the Game Boy made for functionality without a single attempt at updating the gameplay. However, this one's great for shiny hunting with consecutive fishing, the friend safari, and the return of the Poker Radar. The new Poker Radar is garbage because of that fixed camera locked to your face like a selfie stick. And the rarity of shinies were literally halved. Aside from the fact that they kept that shiny charm abomination destroying their value. Well, I loved shiny hunting personally, but most players don't care about that. What about the game itself? It's still sluggish and laggy turn-based combat between agonizingly slow-paced hand-holding. It's archaic, overdone, lazy, and disappointing. Also, the new XP share and Mega Evolution turn this game into an absolute joke. Each route includes so many new potential powerful new allies, the game floods you with options, removing any semblance of a challenge. Okay, well, nobody plays Pokemon for challenging gameplay. What about those entire sections of the game that went completely unused? That's not just bad game design, that's straight up short-sighted management. Well, we were expecting a Pokemon Z to utilize them, but honestly, that's still pretty lazy and leaves the game incomplete. You know when the top 10 competitive teams of the game are all variations of the exact same Pokemon? You've got a problem here. What are you doing? Huh? Oh, sorry. I was playing a better game. In hindsight, these models and animations are quite poor. There are so many lazy decisions, we can't even possibly list them all in a video like this. But Pokemon are in 3D! Aside from the awful downscaling, which is to be expected on the 3DS, the actual game world looks like a cheap mobile game. But Pokemon in 3D! The attack animations don't line up at all, the menus are just as disorganized and hard to navigate as always. I can pet them! In 3D! But don't worry, I'm sure when they finally bring Pokemon to home consoles, they'll fix all of these oversights. Mega kissy face. And what's with the legendaries? We got a rainbow deer and a bacon bird. Why is it always deer? They just poop in my yard. Why is that special? They make my backyard the toilet of the forest. And Game Freak is the toilet of the Pokemon Company. Oh, gonna need a burn here.
Yeah, right, because you're afraid of spoilers in a Pokemon game. What's wrong with you?
Oh man. The ending was actually pretty nice with AZ getting his Pokemon back though. It was like the only memorable moment in any Pokemon game story I've ever seen. That is not saying a lot. I played Y, and honestly the story seemed like so hinged on Yveltal and the bad guys trying to force its apocalyptical awakening. I had no idea how it would translate over to X for Xerneas. It didn't. They clearly just wrote the game for Y and then just pasted over Xerneas in for X. The story makes no literal sense. The bad guys are straight up evil for trying to unleash the loving power of Rainbow Deer. So, this time we got Team Flare and Lysander. The Flare grunts were pretty funny, but they were just more dimwits blindly following a complete lunatic toward an apocalyptical event just like Team Galactic. How can it even become a regular reoccurring thing? It's just so outlandishly stupid. And not the funny kind of stupid. A lot of people like Lysander for some reason. Yeah, he's kind of king hypocrite leading his army of brainless monkeys to their doom. You know, I normally don't mind raging idiots. It's when they lead an entire community of raging idiots that risk causing serious damage to everybody else that I have a problem. You mean like PokeTubers? Don't go there. Or anti-vaxxers? Better stop before they hear you. Or literally everybody on Reddit. You are creating so many enemies. Can we please just get back on track? The less trolls and morons watching, the better. HamsterBomb is for people of class. So wait, how's the game's actual story? Four Rivals was a stupid idea. Forgettable, samey, doesn't hold up to older generations at all. Is it a good time to bring up the new Pokemon cries? This seems like a huge blunder in sound design. Well, I know they're different now, even after all this time, but it's an understandable update alongside the hardware upgrade. I've always been a fan of keeping some nostalgic bits and upgrading and improving as you go on, so it's not that bad. Not that bad? Do you think it's fine to just suddenly change and digitally soil each and every original Pokemon cry like that? Did you appreciate what happened to the Star Wars movies after George Lucas got his hands on some better technology? Well, how would you feel if I suddenly
Sounded like this. Nothing wrong with a little update, right?
make it stop?
Why should I?
It's wrong. It's morbidly uncomfortable. Hearing something so absolutely twisted and still yet recognizable stabbing my ears and bastardizing everything I know.
Exactly.
Do you want a simple, relaxing RPG that you can sink a good 30 hours into? Do you play a game just because there's Pokemon in it? If you honestly haven't played this one as a Pokemon fan, it's still worth picking up. Do you play a game just because there's Pokemon in it? Okay, so are you trying to tell me that without the Pokemon IP, this game wouldn't be worth playing? What I'm saying is that giving Game Freak the Pokemon IP is like giving a baby a Magnum. Do you play a game just because there's Pokemon in it? The positive gamer in me had a great time playing Pokemon X and Y, giving it a solid 8 out of 10. Things like story and challenge aren't what I'm looking for in a Pokemon game. What I look for is lots of Pokemon, things to do with them, tons of ways to hunt them down, and as a Pokemon game, it's pretty solid. The critical gamer in me gives Pokemon X and Y a 6 out of 10. It's a slightly above average score for a slightly above average game. Though it has its fair share of problems, the sheer amount of labor in visual updates from Gen 5 must be appreciated, regardless of how badly they'll be misused in the future. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Pokemon X and Y in the comments below. If you think these games are amazing just because they're Pokemon in 3D, you're just playing with yourself. Man, I am getting so bummed lately with all the recent scummy developers trying to exploit their fans. But look at all the amazing work by all the talented indies and franchise reimaginings lately. I know, but sometimes the sour parts of the industry just wear you out and make you lose hope in developers really caring about their games or fan bases anymore. What if I gave you a passion project game by the same guy who created Final Fantasy? The game is the most pure expression of truly caring about content quality over selling out with hollow aspirations. Wait, what is this? Making a spin-off of Final Fantasy just sounds like a premise that would sell like gangbusters just on recognition alone. IGN is already giving it a 9 out of 10. It's no spin-off. This is its own thing. Japan got it back in 2011, but only due to a massive fan-run campaign called Operation Rainfall would it ever come to the West over a year later. The game is The Last Story. Real coy with the name there. For the Wii? Yeah, let's do it. Why have I never heard of this? This game is outstanding. I know, right? For some reason, it faded into obscurity, though it did turn up lately with a pair of spirit battles in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I need to dig deeper to find stuff to complain about. This isn't right. I want to give this game a hug. And get this, I pre-ordered the game back in the day, and this was back when awesome pre-order bonuses came packaged free with the game and were actually cool. Now, okay, look at this. I got this sweet art book. There's this condensed soundtrack, and then there's this killer novel-themed case to hold the game. Sweet! Hold up, You pre-ordered this? Right, so next you're gonna tell me you also pre-ordered Xenoblade Chronicles from the Operation Rainfall 2, right? You're cooler than I thought, Positive Me. And looks like you're not as big a stickler as I thought, Critical Me. Found something to complain about. Now hold up there. Not many games were trying out real-time combat in RPGs yet, so give it a break for being innovative. It does feel a little clunky at times, but I'm honestly unsure if that's the game's fault or the Wii's for making me play with a cock and balls as controller. I still found that the gameplay throughout felt fresh and interesting as you slowly learn new tactics and abilities like ducking behind cover or running up walls. The sheer amount of interesting things you can do by using the environment to your advantage keeps the game feeling constantly interesting and engaging to play. The game's also pretty linear, but I just keep finding amazing, fully fleshed out side quests that all seem so impressive. I can't believe that players can actually miss these. Man, you're supposed to be the one ripping on the game. What's wrong with you? What's this about online multiplayer? Uh-oh. Now that could be a travesty. Now, I honestly never played it, but I heard it wasn't too exciting. Nobody bought this single-player, campaign-focused game for online multiplayer anyways. You know, the auto-attacking when in range thing felt weird at first, but I'm getting the hang of why it's there. Now I can focus on everything else the game wants me to handle, like my party's attacking coordination and using the environment tactically, like luring enemies into traps. You like it? Took a while to grow on me, but kinda. Yeah, it's actually fun. I hate to say this because the game design is absolutely stunning all around. I already know where this is going. The character designs, weapons, outfits, environments, world building, they're all gorgeous. But it's brown. It's brown. And by that I mean this game just had the unfortunate timing of being released in what I call the brown era, where games were tinted with a shade of sepia brown to look more realistic. Zelda's Twilight Princess also came from the brown era, so I'm not taking that as a bad thing. As you shouldn't. It was just a thing at the time. Just as how this game's unfortunate timing landed it on the Wii. But even still, the Wii's doing a killer job of handling 6 party members fighting countless enemies alongside all their incredibly fine-tuned details at once. Just imagine it being created today for the Switch instead. That, sir, would be a game far too grand and magnificent to believe.
Hey, no spoilers this time. We actually want you to play it.
Yeah, do that thing! Okay, let me get this out of the way now. Okay. This is a linear story-focused JRPG from the creator of Final Fantasy. So it carries some tropes with it, like male protagonist gets strange unique power and alongside his ragtag group of misfits journeys across fantasy world to defeat some overwhelming power. And that's it. This game is absolutely outstanding. Each and every character, including some assumed to be forgettable throwaway side characters, gets so much attention and development. Everyone seems to have an actual meaningful character arc here. I absolutely love the way the characters interact with each other through banter during combat. Aside from this giving them all an extra layer of realism, it's further cementing who they are as a person as opposed to them simply reciting typical jargon from average one-dimensional side characters. Now, there are characters I dislike, but I'm supposed to. I actually want to see Geralt get his just rewards for being a despicable scumbag. But man, this world sure hates you and your party. Zale and his band of outsider mercenaries are true to a world not unlike The Witcher in so many ways. Aside from them being unfittingly treated like thugs and scoundrels by the common folk, the entire world feels so alive and real that it can only add to your compassion and understanding of the characters, all on their own unique psychological journeys. We get to spend so much time with each character inside and outside battle, really fleshing out who they are as troubled people, all with their own individual hurdles in life, keeping them from what they're aspiring to achieve. It just keeps pushing me as a player to keep fighting forward in the story, eager to see what comes next, hoping things turn around for them. I actually want to see Callista find true happiness away from her life and royalty. I want to see Zale finally stick it to the uppity high class and become a real knight. I feel for Marania and Yurik and Dagran, heck even Lowell and Seren. Everyone is so fleshed out and real. It makes you really feel like stepping into another world being with these characters. This creator must have loved this game more than his own children. Wait, does he have kids? Stalking an old Japanese man online? As far as I'm concerned, these are his kids. Hold up, the Final Fantasy composer did music for this game too? Yep, good stuff. Good stuff? Normally, when you get forgotten one-off games like this, passion projects or not, you tend to have at least one sour mark. Either the story, gameplay, or music seriously suffers for it, but even the soundtrack is just too awesome to gripe. If you seriously keep praising this game, we won't have any jokes at all in this video. Fine, here's your review. The fully orchestrated soundtrack is incredible. And here's your joke. Okay. A transvestite, a handicapped monkey, and Santa Claus walk into a bar where an African-American rooster attempts to cross the road to catch his refrigerator. What does the sombrero-sporting Indian bartender say to the Viking hippie wizard by the door? Are you trying to offend every single demographic ever? You know what? I bet you don't even have a legitimate answer to that anyway. He says, "Did he try unplugging it and plugging it back in again?" It's so stupid. People are gonna be so mad. Much funny. Did laugh. Joke? Check. Do you want to see deep characters in a richly realized living fantasy world for your RPGs? Can you forgive a game for its system limitations and its brown? Taken from somebody who thinks Final Fantasy is just okay, this game far surpasses its derivative works in ways I could only dream of in a video game. Do you find joy in discovering hidden gems in used game stores? Then play this game. The positive gamer in me had an outstanding ride with the last story, giving it a solid 9 out of 10. I fell deep into this game's wonderfully crafted world and characters, and I couldn't recommend it higher for gamers up for dusting off the old Wii remote. The critical gamer in me agrees. The last story deserves every bit of a 9 out of 10 for blowing my expectations out of the water in nearly every regard. However, it isn't perfect. Its combat does feel clunky at first, and it's certainly a game for those itching for a deep single-player experience. But in the end, it is no less than outstanding. Wow! I never thought we'd agree on anything! Me either, but I hope this establishes just how hard it'll be to squeeze a 10 out of us. So did you change your mind about developers losing care and investment in their games? You know, if you honestly believe that all game developers are lazy, sleazy businessmen looking to gouge you out of every penny you own by putting forth the minimum amount of effort after playing this, you're just playing with yourself. Hey Hamster, wanna play some Monster Hunter? Oh sure, I love Monster Hunter. Which one? World 4 Ultimate? Maybe Gen U? Oh, you heard me right. I said Monster Hunter. The first one? PS2? Oh, heck no. No way. But you love Monster Hunter. You said so yourself. Yeah, but this is going to be a big sweaty butt. How on earth did this series ever get a sequel? This is painful. Oh, I mean, it's still a PS2 game doing action-based, real-time combat against fully articulated monster AI. Honestly, it's quite impressive. Knowing what I know now about the future of Monster Hunter make this all the more painful to play. Nothing is simple. Everything is relentlessly brutal. The meager quest rewards, general intense difficulty, scarce access to items, wonky rarity system, and the lack of practical mandatory future updates like the canteen and farming capabilities make it all the more painful. You don't deserve them. You must suffer. I can't express how agonizing this experience is. Each new monster is a new kind of hell previously unimaginable. Cephadrome just runs away from you the entire time. Gypsaros's rubber tail is as wide as a truck, and Plesioth hides in the water half the fight before finally emerging to blast you into the ozone with his freight train-sized hitboxes. This game was created in order to encourage PS2 players to use online multiplayer. It would make the game easier and help sell that feature that was pretty new at the time. Sounds nice and all, but the servers shut down little under 4 years after launch outside Japan. We're going in solo, Bomb. You're going in solo, Hamster. You're going in solo. Who the heck thought it was a good idea to make the right analog stick the attack button? Wait, what? You'd think your analog would be saved for something like camera control or maybe dodging, but no. You need to flick it to attack. It's janky as all hell not knowing whether or not your quick carpal tunnel analog flick inputs went through between your reflexive button pressing. Okay, aside from the controls being as stable as a live trout, how's the gameplay? The gameplay loop is incredibly arduous solo. Between hunts, you'll end up going back to early quests to manually gather herbs, blue mushrooms, and honey to craft potions since you can't farm anything. Well, why can't you just craft max potions if you're not given a canteen to eat meals? No, I'm not wasting my life. Here's how to craft a single max potion for the game. You need Mega Nutrients and a Dragon Toadstool, and that's with a 35% chance of failing the combo and making garbage, by the way. To make the Mega Nutrients, you need Nutrients and 1 Honey. Those have a 25% chance of failing, by the way. Now, to make regular Nutrients, you need a Blue Mushroom and a God Bug, with a 10% chance of failure. But this is the same as the other games. What's the big deal with you, you whiner? Do you realize how hard it is to come by all of that stuff manually, all for a single-use item slightly increasing your max HP? I spend way too much time grinding up regular Mega Potions anyway. Yeah, with how precious manually gathered resources are, nope. No, thank you. Okay, we'll just craft some better armor and weapons. That's the point of the game, right? Oh, did I mention that you also need to manually carry the smithy's materials in your pouch in order to craft? You actually need to write down what he needs, go back to your room, take it all out of your box, and bring it to him. Seriously, if you can imagine any way they could have made your life harder or more tedious, it's probably in this game. So, you're not a big fan? I've never played a game that has caused my blood to boil out my ears like this one, ignoring everything we already brought up. The #1 way you'll die in this game, assuming you're already experienced with the series, is by the camera. Oh, come on, now you're just making excuses for how much you die. No, forget Rathalos, forget freaking Plesioth. The camera is the ultimate predator in this game. The camera can't phase through terrain like it can in the other games. When you're near the edge of a wall, the camera will literally spaz out and flip around all over until it's away from the wall. Your only control over it is the L button to center it behind you, but God forbid you get cornered. You're better off running away blind and praying for mercy from this angry god. Hold on, the camera is affected by the environment colliders? Wow. Okay, I gotta admit, that's pretty horrible in an action game. With generally small close-quarter fighting environments, by the way. Don't forget that one. Hey, hold on. You're the positive gamer here. What do you think about this gameplay? Well, aside from establishing a lot to build from, it's clunky at best. This game is like ripping out your own fingernails with a set of rusty pliers. Okay, I know we just spent all that time ripping on the game, but dude, look at the graphics for PS2! Well, the user interface is a little unwieldy and ugly, but yeah, the monsters look amazing. Some environments could use some work, but others feel really menacing and like true biomes for these beasts. Those cutscenes and ecological pre-rendered videos are amazing! Aside from them breathing new life into the monsters and the world, the graphics alone make it all look stunning. But some places look absolutely terrible with some lazy design and ugly textures. Oh, come on. I thought this was where the game actually shined best. Far too often did I mindlessly tromp around hoping that something was a gathering point when it wasn't, as there's zero indicators at all. Sometimes identical gathering points don't even look the same. Mining points can even look like a giant stone butt crack. I noticed that you basically need to memorize which random places on the map can spawn gathering points and stand on each of them to see if you can or not. So I'll give this game some points for some cool monster design like Rathalos and... Hold on. No, I think I have problems with every single monster in this game. Oh boy. Here's how I feel about all of them. Small monsters, calm down. I didn't do anything to you. You literally exist to get eaten. You make me feel like an ant in a pinball machine. You're way too big. Seriously, what did I ever do to you? Paralyze me one more time and I'll murder your entire family. You murder bugs blend in with the ground on every single map. Poison can eat a dick in this game, and so can you. Deer, why do I always feel like I'm in a bad neighborhood when the cats are black? Awkward inbred blue minions that attack no matter the situation. Devious little psychopaths, euthanize on sight. Large monsters, big stupid rock that you can time out even looking for since he sits there, not bothering anybody, blending in with the other identical rocks. You're just a big dumb sand snake struggling to swallow a tire who just runs from me for 50 minutes until you time out. My arch nemesis, the devil incarnate. Pretty sweet design, bummer you can't fight him offline. A bigger version of the awful paralyzing douchebags. A bigger rock that shoots more lasers. How does this overgrown dirt mound even move? Rubber turkey running predetermined laps, lobbing poison globs everywhere. We made them bigger, and big surprise, poison is still terrible. Why do you have so much HP? Walking penis. Walking penis. No. Just no. You're just a stunlock horse. Die in a hole. A cool idea for a defend the castle quest with the most agonizingly boring execution possible. One horn less, but just as awful. Get out of the water, you freak duck shark, and stop spinning your solar system-sized tail. Stop freaking flying, you stalling little spammer. Stop freaking trampling me, you crack-fueled steamroller. You're barely bigger than the small ones, but you take like 20 times longer to kill. Possibly the ugliest abomination ever. You have a face a mother couldn't even love, considering she left you for dead in the forest. Wow. But the game still looks great, doesn't it? Stick a Kazoo in it. It doesn't exist. You're a single hunter helping out a small community by fighting off a series of monsters for them as the requests come in. Adding up to absolutely nothing. It's just an excuse to fight monsters. Yeah. I mean, well, after you kill Rathalos, you're worthy to pull the weapon out of the stone behind your house. That little thing still sucks, King Arthur. I guarantee you, 0 players ever picked up this game and were hoping for an invigorating story. Is it a good time to point out that even for completionists, this game is borderline incompletable? Now what's up your butt? For the record, you'll need to complete every quest to unlock certain others as you go. And delivery quests in this game are an absolute nightmare, by the way. I can imagine with the terrible controls, no food buffs, and neurotic monsters. But some quests will remain hidden until you craft specific pieces of armor on top of clearing other unrelated quests. This is the only way to see some monsters like Diablos, Gravios, and Khezu. I mean, having secret monsters is fun. Sounds like you kinda need guides to properly unlock them, but it's still a fun surprise. Well, you'll be in for a ball-busting surprise at the end when you unlock your final quest called the Troublesome Pair. This is your first and only time fighting more than one large monster at once, not ending in drone. But if you made it this far, how bad could it really be? For this one, you'll face off against Rathalos and Rathian at the same time. But they're far stronger than anything you've ever faced before. The entire offline game up to this point has been low rank, meaning the monsters are on the same level before jumping up to a pretty extreme degree in high rank. This quest, however, is high rank, meaning that you'll barely put a dent in the 2 huge threats that will more than likely mop the floor with your bloody carcass. And the actual high rank is locked behind the defunct servers. Great. Is this game even beatable anymore? Aside from some absolutely insane perfect run attempting speedrunners, no, it's not. Oh, well, it kind of hurts me as a completionist looking at an incomplete quest list, especially with only one more to go. Oh yeah, remember the Elder Dragons I mentioned? Yeah, how do we fight them? I rank only, so they're also locked behind online. Great. So I can't even face Fatalis in this game. You wanted to? Well, yeah. I mean, I must be a little masochistic to actually play this far through this game to begin with. Monster Hunter notoriously has some incredible music, but this one sounds like blasting watered-down versions out your anus through a trumpet. So it's gross. Loud and gross. Yep, that about covers it. Moving on. Do you find pleasure in your own suffering and self-loathing? If you're a collector, this is a great game to own and pretend that you played. Does dying unfairly 45 minutes into a quest after spending hours gathering materials to even attempt it in the first place sound fun to you? Do you only own a PS2? If you were to drill an entire box of screws in your legs and think, man, I wish I had more screws, do I have the game for you? The positive gamer in me wasn't expecting much with the original Monster Hunter, but I was somehow still disappointed, giving the game a lousy 5 out of 10. Looking past all the problems, it's still Monster Hunter at its core, but that's looking past a lot of problems. The critical gamer in me is flabbergasted Capcom had the balls to continue with this abomination of a game, giving it a revolting 2 out of 10. Nearly every moment I spent with this borderline unplayable trash was a miserable experience I will never get back. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Monster Hunter for PS2 down in the comments below. If you think this game's a classic just because it's called Monster Hunter, you're just playing with yourself. Hey, Fatty McBlubberton, I got a new game for you. What? I am not fat. Well, you're definitely out of shape. Well, sitting in this chair all day does that to you. Back and neck are killing me. Hold on, I'm sorry. What was that? I couldn't hear you through all your pitiful, scrawny wheezing. We are the same person. At least I'm not fat. Ring Fit Adventure. Oh no, you're not roping me into that. Wow. Oh, I know. Look at how not fat and out of shape you are, lugnut. No, I'm actually impressed with this. I mean, the game is designed and executed so much better than I expected when I first saw it in the trailers. Huh. You know, it actually does look pretty sweet the more I watch. Is this really an exercise game? I mean, I honestly thought I was throwing you under the bus with this one. It's actually astounding how well this all works, keeping me engaged in the gameplay, but also playing the perfect mind games with me to make sure that I keep my body moving. It's genius. Never thought you'd work up this much of a sweat playing with yourself, did you? Don't put that in the video. Okay, how on earth can you possibly be impressed with an exercise game? Forgetting the obvious motion control input, the game itself plays like an honest RPG. There's tons of creative elements, levels, currency, outfits as armor, ingredients for smoothies as potions, and buffs for battles. But it's an exercise game! This was a joke, man! Dude, there's a skill tree! This totally backfired. You're dead serious about all this? I get 100% worlds, complete with side quests as I progress through the main story. Did you hear me? There's a story campaign! You know, for me to stay motivated and to really make a habit of this game, I would need something like that to keep me going. Honestly, it all does. The way the levels are structured encourage you to go back and farm ingredients if you need them, or explore other paths you might have missed. There's always something to do. So what about the actual controls? Honestly, I've only had a couple instances where the motion controls didn't feel right, but I later found out that was only because I wasn't doing something right. You've always got help on screen showing you exactly how to perform each movement, so they motion captured these Joy-Con movements perfectly to match what you're supposed to be doing.
So when do the enemies come in?
You'll run into enemies occasionally while running through the main levels. Anyway, your actual attacks are different workouts with a set amount of reps targeting different parts of the body. Each one is color coordinated as well, so you know how to do extra damage to enemies with them, further encouraging you to mix it up and maybe even perform some tougher moves for extra damage.
Didn't I see that the IR motion camera can actually read your pulse after each level? That's pretty nifty for helping you determine your difficulty level.
Not only that, but every 10 minutes or so the game reminds you to take breaks or stop for the day. And once you do, your ending stretches are all determined based on the actual workouts you did that day to help maximize your lasting effects.
Looks to me like you are getting so distracted by the game itself that you don't seem to realize anymore that the game is tricking you into exercising!
Oh, I know, but it might just be the best lie ever told. Besides, I'm gonna stop in just a bit. I'm just one level away from challenging the boss of this world, so before I do that, I'm gonna mix up some smoothies for the battle before checking the shop and upgrading my gear for a new set of bonuses. I should also visit an old level in order to find some carrots and onions and make me an experience doubling soup for the fight as well. Then, of course, I'll finish all the side quests like monster elimination, the deliveries, the challenges, and battle arenas before...
This game looks beautiful. Man, just look at the colors and fluid animations on everything.
It's been given more attention than most, that's for sure.
I love the look of the enemies and their unexpectedly large variety.
Yeah, same goes for the characters. They're a perfect combination of taking themselves seriously while totally self-aware of how silly the game really is.
These levels you run through are absolutely beautiful. It's like running through a colorful combination of Mario Odyssey and Zelda Breath of the Wild. This is a freaking exercise game. These people need a raise!
Now, some levels do get reused in later worlds, but they always come with a fresh coat of paint, resulting in new hazards and challenges.
There's just something so satisfying of just watching the landscape unfold through the twists and turns with colorful wildlife all gracefully animated.
It's also worth noting how clear and helpful Tip is. Tip is your archetype guide who shows you clearly how to do each movement. He's even indicated in the little animation graphics indicating your attacks, making the whole user interface clean and simple to understand.
Why does this game look and perform so well? Does it know it's an exercise game? That's like breaking the rules or something. Okay, so, come on, spill the beans. This story has to suck out loud.
Why?
Because it's an exercise game. Yeah, duh.
You team up with this weird, tiki-looking sentient ring thing in order to journey across the world fighting monsters, helping people, and fighting the dark influence of the main antagonist, Drago. He's actually a clever stand-in for everything wrong with fitness. He's smugly obsessed with his own looks and overexerts himself for attention, putting aside healthy regimens.
I mean, it's pretty funny and all, but that's not very in-depth.
Well, what would you want out of this story mode, honestly?
Something engaging enough to keep me playing long enough to make it a habit to fire up the game every day, and enough to keep me coming back even after that to hold me to my new routine.
Yeah, it'll do that at least. Honestly, the gameplay loop will do this even more, but the story alone is just funny enough and just self-aware enough to keep you wanting to see more. Depending on what you want out of it, there's something for everyone.
Unless you wanted some actual storytelling with character development, right?
Well, yeah, of course it's very simple, but even still, I'm not even that sure about that. I'm currently 32 days into it, and yeah, it's a little silly and laid back, but it might actually be heading somewhere.
How close are you to the end? That worries me, having my drive to exercise ending.
Oh, I'm not even close yet. There's such a ridiculous amount of ingredients, smoothies, and armor pieces I haven't even seen yet in the glossary that I am confident in this being crazy long.
Even still, it wouldn't hurt to start over, right?
Nah, all the workouts are still helpful all the way through. And you can customize it all based on what you're looking to get out of it anyway.
Find problems with this game already!
It's great. This game is not allowed to be this good. Do you need something to continually motivate you into actually exercising?
I know it looks stupid, but you'd be amazed with how many workouts this thing can track.
Coming from someone who sits in a chair all day long, never moving, this game was cleverly designed enough to get me in the habit of getting up each day to get my blood moving, and even fix some of my back and neck issues.
Literally nobody paid us to make this video. The game's that good.
Before we give out ratings, let's just be clear.
This is a game designed to get you off your butt and moving.
So we're going to rate it based on how well it performs, based on what it was aspiring to achieve.
So without further ado, the positive gamer in me is absolutely flabbergasted with Ring Fit Adventure, giving it my first ever 10 out of 10. This game did everything it set out to do and more. It amazes me in every regard and keeps me coming back better than any fitness plan or workout routine has ever done before.
The critical gamer in me honestly struggles to find problems with Ring Fit Adventure, but at the end of the day, I'm willing to give it a solid 9 out of 10. And I feel that 10th coin could have been earned had the game's dependence on motion controls and a lack of a real meaningful story been remedied. However, these seem like impossible demands considering the constraints. The game is astounding to say the least and has completely shattered my expectations, and my expectations were high.
Have you given it a try yet? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Ring Fit Adventure in the comments below.
If you think this game's a joke just because it's an exercise game, you're just playing with yourself.
Well, this would be a nice change of pace, eh, Hamster?
It'll be, different, alright?
We were planning on doing another Pokemon game next, but we couldn't decide on which one to review. So we're doing them all! Sorta. We'll probably come back to talk about all of them in their own episodes eventually, but for now, we're going to get to look at the franchise as a whole. Since there are now more than 4 times as many Pokemon as there are countries on the planet, it seems like a good time to try and collect our thoughts on the ever-growing number of generations Game Freak keeps churning out through their robotic assembly line. I think it's safe to say that everyone agrees that some generations of Pokemon were better than others. No one will agree, however, which were the good ones and which were better off smothered in the crib. Let's try to forget our personal favoritism and instead focus on actual pros and cons of each pair of games for fair evaluation of the generations. Now, before all the angry 12-year-olds with horribly blatant tunnel vision begin typing out their theses on why we're wrong, know that we're going to do something a little different when ranking these games. We'll give each generation the praise and shame we think they're due, going in release order, allowing you to keep an unbiased mind by placing each generation in your own rankings from first to last as you deem the most fair. So don't forget to post your list in the comments section below, as we'll be sharing ours at the end of this video. Averages and commonality should reveal the true best and worst generations as all of our lists are assembled together. So let's begin. To better appreciate Gen 1, we need to remember that before this, there was nothing. This was ground zero. Everything you know from Pokemon games to come was created here. The sheer amount of creative power behind this project is astounding. Aside from the fact that no other Game Boy release had kids this obsessed for anywhere near this long. This release is tributed to saving the Game Boy and in turn changing the tide for Nintendo as a portable gaming console developer. No other generation has anywhere close to as much bragging rights as Gen 1. For more pros on Gen 1, check out the entire Let's Be Honest video I made on it. Okay, so what? It blew all our minds on the Game Boy. What else are we supposed to talk about? Tetris? Though Pokemon as a franchise was knocking our socks off, Game Freak began doing what we now know them to do best. A bad job. The game falls apart in how it's coded. It's full of quirky bugs, a few game-breaking ones to be fair, but plenty of unintended yet hilarious problems.
Psychics were overpowered. Special defense equaled your special attack as a single stat. Stat modifiers were horribly overpowered, and multi-hitting moves like Wrap were better than Hyper Beam. But picking on this game feels like insulting your grandmother. She can't help that she's wrinkly and fat, but pointing it out just makes you seem like a dick. Adding 100 new Pokemon to the roster and allowing players to begin in a new region was something to be excited about in Gen 2, before it became requirements for the new games going forward. Breeding allowed for obtaining new Pokemon and made choosing the right Pokemon for competitive battling a thing. Real-time day and night cycles changed wild Pokemon and evolutions. Shinies increased time investment in the game and showed off the color functionality of the Game Boy Color. And in possibly the biggest surprise in gaming history, players cried tears of joy after believing they were on their way to the end of the game when discovering they had just rediscovered the Kanto region. Ever since then, fans have begged for multi-regional games like this, but to no avail. Being native to the same console as the first, this game suffers from common sequel symptoms. Changes were subtle, and the only new stuff you got was just simple additional content. By today's standards, this game could have been the DLC expansion to Gen 1. No new real innovations were added other than breeding and day-night cycles and shiny Pokemon, but featuring tons of the original's issues without a care of giving them any attention. Plus, going to Kanto afterward was kind of anticlimactic considering you're bringing with you a fully trained team ready to decimate any challengers. Maybe if all your Pokemon got green carded before entering to keep your old filthy foreign Pokemon from taking the local Pokemon's jobs, I'd be singing a different tune. The full color graphics and music quality jump from Gens 1 and 2 was so substantial, it even trumps the jump to 3D that X and Y felt. With a new 135 Pokemon added and tons of old ones to rediscover in the exotic island of Hoenn, this game blew everybody's minds. Departing from the Game Boy, Game Freak rebuilt Pokemon from the ground up for Game Boy Advance. The games functioned beautifully and the Pokemon designs were full of life and fit the new, colorful world. New concepts were also introduced like double battles, abilities, natures, and contest stats to give the games even more depth and potential for battles and collecting. Due to the much-needed overhaul, Gen 3 cut ties with the first two games, leaving it unable to trade between the two, making it the only trading separation in the entire franchise. Players needed the GameCube's Coliseum and GBA's Fire Red and Leaf Green and all relevant trading and converting cables in order to actually complete the Pokédex. And Team Aqua and Magma were certainly no Team Rocket, with motivations that both seem outlandishly short-sighted and over the top, oddly matching ludicrously similar actual environmentalists. This is also arguably the dawn of the friendly rival. I thought there was something else. Oh yeah, and of course, 7.8, too much water. Moving to the Nintendo DS, the games needed another overhaul. But this time being capable of transferring Game Boy Advance Pokemon to the DS. Environments featured pseudo 3D and moves were now either physical or special and no longer forced into one category based on their typing. The Poké Radar was also added as a post-game item to aid in shiny hunting, and that's about it. I honestly Googled quite a lot searching for more to say. The directionless design of Sinnoh is confusing as all get out. Finding out where to go next sends more confused players to walkthroughs than any other Pokemon game. Cave and surfing encounter rates are absolutely through the roof! Surfing in general is slower than tugging a 747 with a Tonka tricycle. In fact, the entire game seems to play in slow motion as encounters are high, and Pokemon attack and entrance animations go on for a day and a half before battle even starts, making you disabling them an absolute must. Your rival, ironically, wants to move really fast and continuously mocks you for not keeping up. You can practically hear the DS wheezing in pain simply trying to load the game. Luckily, Platinum fixed some of these problems, but the damage dealt to Diamond and Pearl were permanent. It doesn't help my opinion of the game that the majority of my least favorite Pokemon designs originate from Gen 4. We also received several unnecessary baby forms 2 generations late from the breeding train. and even more unnecessary, unpopular, and annoying to perform evolutions to old favorites, tainting them permanently in the eyes of longtime fans. Team Galactic is also possibly the most painfully backwards and moronic villainous group to ever assault the franchise. This game directly caused the huge "Pokemon isn't cool anymore" drop-off in early 2007. Possibly the worst thing about Gen 4 is the fan base of angry adolescents who believe it to be the best, simply because they played it first. Realizing their many mistakes in Generation 4, Game Freak realized the best way to make a new Pokemon game was to stop decimating their original designs and compromising gameplay over rushed marketing schemes. Gen 5 introduced over 150 new Pokemon in an entirely new region and without including the past Pokemon until its sequels. Regardless of how you feel about this generation, that took some balls. I really admire franchises starting fresh and reimagining what made them great to begin with, as it takes significantly more effort to accomplish than a simple sequel money churn. Animations also took a huge overhaul, as every single Pokemon and character received meticulous sprite animations to flow during combat. Now, these Pokemon designs are some of the most controversial, considering how some are still personal favorites of mine, being absolutely amazing, while others absolutely suck. But granted, the people who are angry about some of the bad Gen 5 designs seem to have forgotten that we have a lawnmower Pokemon. The game's concept may have been rebuilt from the ground up, but literally everything else screams rehashed formulation. The new content we actually got frustrated players by forcing them to act in agonizingly bad B-movies before progressing with the story. Team Plasma is PETA. Was this supposed to be a jab at PETA? Also, this is where rivals truly become a thing of the past, and instead we are given straight up friends. Aside from the obvious leap to 3D that Game Freak had been putting off for years, Gen 6 really turned some heads. Though it only added 72 Pokemon, the game flourished by including a vast number of old school Pokemon to appear in each route alongside the new, making the new inclusions each seem special as you attempted to hunt them all down. Which, now that we're on the topic, were actually well designed this time. Quality over quantity, I guess? This is also the first and only Pokemon game to impress me with its story. Well, I guess when anticipating garbage, anything not atrocious seems to surpass expectations. This might just be the easiest Pokemon game ever made. With 2 starters, a massive palette of partner Pokemon to choose from, a Mega Evolution system to boot, gyms, and any other challenge standing in your way gets viciously and mercilessly mowed down. And no, I don't consider Mega Evolution to be a good thing. It's good that instead of getting more Gen 4 evolution abominations, we instead got temporary forms, but they completely break the difficulty curve of the game. Having 3 Pokedexes was completely unnecessary and added nothing to the game. The story was clearly written for Y, with the awakening of the apocalypse Pokemon Yveltal, where confused X-players are tasked with stopping the control copy and pasted Xerneas from giving Pokemon life? Comically, there are still unused areas of the game players assume to be accessed in the events that never came. The re-inclusion of the Poké Radar was a nice gesture, but ended up being nearly impossible to use in the same way as the Gen 4 due to a clunky camera restriction system. Tipping was introduced in a region based on countries that find asking for a tip offensive. It pays to do your homework, kids. Oh yeah, did somebody out there ask for even more not rival-friendly friends?
Come on, no.
I'll take that moaning as an emphatic yes. With an all-new 3D style and design overhaul, Sun and Moon had fans hooked during the hype season. The tropical new Pokemon were interesting, and the regional Hawaiian vibe fit the bill. We got 85 new Pokemon this time around, new ways to battle and shiny hunts, and HMs were finally removed, replaced with an on-demand Pokemon slave service. Gyms were also removed entirely, instead focusing on story-based island hopping adventures. Wait. Did that belong in the pros section? Well, I'm proud to see them break staple and tradition after 6 generations, but what they replaced it with... were completely stupid, mind-numbing trials, ranging from fetch quests to recognizing blatant differences in photographs. Nothing will make you feel more like a lonely adult at Chuck E. Cheese than these mind-numbingly face-palming trials. The story as a whole is full of cringing plot holes and questioning Game Freak as a developer. Z-moves were also introduced, and I honestly find them nearly as game-breaking as Mega Evolution. Z-moves are basically an I feel like winning now button. Team Skull is cringing incarnate. Your rival is a mentally challenged gopher. And probably the biggest problem with Gen 7 is how horridly rushed the game feels. You reach the final island and realize the developers didn't have time to add any actual content. The game slows down to a halt, as in-game characters even seem to give up on putting any effort forward at all. The post-game was so rushed, they had to release sequels that ripped off QREM's awkward fusion ability that we finally purged from our memory in an attempt to finish the game. All in the good name of holiday release schedules. Nice to know where your priorities are, Game Freak. At least some kids and rich elitist trolls enjoyed it. The wild area and max raid battles were both quite shallow in delivery, but honest attempts at innovation. I honestly struggle to compliment anything more on this game. Maybe your lists can justify this particular generation, but the way I see it, Game Freak had been playing Russian roulette for far too long, and Generation 8 hit that bullet. Where to start? It's undeniable now the massive 2019 PR disaster of this game was due to Game Freak outright lying to its fans, and alongside their continual price gouging with overpriced DLC and multiple costly online services are putting even the most die-hard fans into a pickle. This is not helped by the fact that the generation unfortunately suffers from low-end graphics, textures, LOD, and pop-in, with an uncomfortable amount of bugs and cringy shortcomings, too numerous to mention in a video not exclusively held on the topic. This is also the first instance of an incomplete Pokédex in franchise history, supposedly due to new models and animations, which the game ironically needed for real, pretty direly, as Game Freak lied about this with obvious hindsight to withhold Pokemon from players in order to sell them back later as future DLC, which they also promised they wouldn't be doing. The real con of this generation is the fans losing faith in Game Freak as a company, as they fully turned their attention to the investors instead of the players. Well, with all that in mind, all that's left to do is post your list in the comments so we can compare notes. Of course, don't let my list or anyone else's bias your own. Just base it on your pros and cons of each game. With that said, here's what we came up with. Gen 3 won this race like a US president by being the least disappointing. Gen 1, the one time in history that Game Freak was creative. Gen 2, the most surprising by-the-book sequel ever. Gen 5, the good intentions that fell flat on its face. Gen 6, the birth of many bad ideas we still can't shake. Gen 7, the one assuming we're all too dumb to see this is a simple cash grab. Gen 4, the filthy stain on nostalgia itself. Gen 8, the one that makes you realize that you're in an abusive relationship and she doesn't really love you, she just loves your money, so you should probably consult some psychiatric help before confronting that gold digger with the idea that you should try spending some time apart until she gets her act together and stops treating you like she treats her toilet paper. Oh, by the way, here's Kim's list as well.
Gen 2, the only game that actually built off its predecessor. Gen 6, the perfect game for the EV trainer and obsessed groomer. Gen 3, the one with quality and a good challenge. Gen 1, the one that's not as special as we'd like to pretend. Gen 5, the forgotten middle child that tried too hard to be cool. Gen 4, the most horrendously designed. Gen 7, the game that thinks I'm 6. And Gen 8, the one that makes me ashamed to like Pokemon.
I guess the point of all this was to show that everybody's rankings will be different. And that's okay! Because if you think that your opinion is better than anyone else's, you're just playing with yourself. Snake, I'm pulling you out of retirement for one last mission. You sure about that? Something tells me Kojima won't stop with just one Metal Gear Solid. If anything, you'll just come back like Mick Jagger, doing the same old routine, but as a crotchety old geezer. I think I'm content drinking my life away in Alaska, thank you very much. I've got everything I'll ever need here. Beer and puppies. But nobody to share it with? I should mention my niece is being held captive on the island by the terrorist group you'll be taking down. Is she hot? Huh? She's probably an 8. At least a 7. Dude, you just rated your own niece. Well, she's actually my daughter. That's worse. Hold on. So which is it? Niece or daughter? It's not both, is it? Snake, we need to focus on the mission. I'm not rescuing your incestual daughter. She's just my daughter. Colonel, don't lie to me. You weren't supposed to find out till the end of the mission, Snake. Even though it doesn't really matter, this entire mission is full of half-truths and double-crossing liars. She better be an 8. At least a 7.
Looks like I'll be playing digitally this time on the PS3. Weapons and controllers are OSP. I gotta say, I'm dying a lot already. It's really tough getting around all these guards. This is a stealth mission, Snake. Take your time and avoid suspicion whenever possible. For the record, my entire bout of first impressions can be seen in my Let's Play video series on YouTube, shameless plug. Breaking the fourth wall is also going to become a regular thing, Snake. Hold on, I forget where we go from here. Oh, I remember. The timestamp is posted in the description of this video. But that's only a second from now. You, really are dying a lot, Snake. Is sneaking around through heavily guarded enemy facilities too much for you? I'm getting better as I go, but yeah, it's a real challenge. Maybe it's the camera being too close to let me see enough of the area. Maybe it's the rigid controls. And maybe you're just a whiny little snaky poo. Some things do bother me, like needing to swap items out of your weapon slots just to open doors or equip things like the gas mask or infrared goggles. But Snake, you can't carry more than one thing at once. How many arms do you think you have? Though I do like how I can freeze time by swapping my equipment. Also, the stealth and enemy movements do get much more engaging once you understand the basics of how they work. So you think you're up for the challenge of the mission? I'm actually having fun planning out when to backtrack with higher level key cards and strategizing my way around the facility. Boss fights are pretty tough, but they're at a great difficulty level. It's hard enough to make you want to really push through to taste that sweet, satisfying victory. You taste my sweet, satisfying niece yet? Dude, that is so gross. This game got a remake on the GameCube, and honestly, I still prefer the old polys and the animated painting codec characters. What is that, some nostalgia bias coming through? No, if anything, I saw the GameCube one first. I never owned a Sony console until the PS3. The charm just isn't there in the GameCube release, among many other things. Not going there, I do agree this game looks great for what it is. I actually think this is my favorite looking codec in any Metal Gear Solid game. And the characters and environments are just detailed enough to feel real and alive, as well as dark and gritty, fitting the tone of the game. So yeah, it's a PS1 game, but it's absolutely charming with its effort to stand out from the colorful crowd competitors we're creating. Man, the GameCube release just takes a big steamy dump on this game. It also made the game insanely easy by porting the Metal Gear Solid 2 controls and soiled the intense narrative with unnecessary over-the-top Matrix-style action sequences. Speaking of the narrative, it's absolutely amazing. Really? So even my critical side loves this story. It's just interesting enough to keep me glued to the game, eager to uncover more. Plus, you can stop and chat with anybody for far longer than you'd expect to learn as much as you want about them and the world at your own pace through the codec. So the gamer into playing a stealth overhead shooter can do so without being majorly interrupted. And the story seeker can soak up hours of interesting conversations while they play at their own pace. That alone may be storytelling at its finest. It's there when you want it and gone when you don't.
It also helps that the narrative is full of plot twists and super interesting concepts and character dynamics. For the sake of a review, it's simply too outstanding to spoil. If you haven't experienced this game's story already, you need to go into this one blind. Or watch my blind Let's Play, shameless plug. Now, some lines are a little corny, but they're the fun kind of bad, like a budget film that takes itself too seriously and you just can't help but love it for it. So you're seriously not gonna do any spoilers for this one? Plot-wise, I have never played a game this breathtaking, and I know I'd be spoiling that for a few unfortunate folks who would watch the spoiler section anyway, thinking it's not a big deal only to regret it later. That's not good enough. We're going to play a game, Snake. When the pain becomes too great to bear, just give up, and your suffering will end. But if you do, the spoilers are mine. This is for your own good. A lot of the environment sneaking things are alright. I mean, nothing stands out too much, honestly, other than the encounter theme. But that encounter theme is amazing. Luckily, you'll hear it a lot, as it's the boss theme, and it plays when you're spotted. Never gets old, though. Since we're on the subject of sound design, can we bring up the voice acting? Absolutely every line and codec call in this game is fully voice acted. That's practically unheard of back in the day. They're all delivered so well and with a great voice cast, just knocking it out of the park. Even when the lines get a little 90s action movie-esque, the lines are all performed so passionately that it sells the scene regardless. Not to bring up the remake again, but during its production, the original recordings had to be scrapped due to technical issues, and everything had to be remade. Snake's voice actor, David Hayter, was even rumored to take a personal pay cut just to help afford to get back the original cast. Bummer, none of it sounded nearly as good as the original. Something about this PS1 game just happened to capture everyone in their prime, giving it their all. It really matters in a game where seeing through lies and concealed truths help the player to piece the story together. Oh yeah, and don't forget the ending theme. The best is yet to come. It's too late, Snake! We're wrapping this up! David Hayter once called Metal Gear Solid the Mercedes of video games. He's not wrong. Except you won't have to shell out for overpriced, upcharged parts in the future. You can try plugging into controller port 2, but you are not finding a higher quality game on the original PlayStation than this one. If you can forgive the PS1 clunkiness, you'll find that this game may just be one of the, if not the, greatest game ever made. If you're a sucker for story, I dare you to find a better gaming experience than Metal Gear Solid. And then I still won't believe you. Snake, what am I fighting for? What are you fighting for? If we review this, I'll tell you. The positive gamer in me was completely blown away with Metal Gear Solid, giving it a well-deserved 10 out of 10. I went into this game blind on my channel expecting a great game, and I was still impressed beyond words. This game left me speechless on several occasions and deserves nothing less than a perfect 10. Right, Snake? Well, the critical gamer in me does recognize minor gameplay quirks holding back a 10, but then I realize how I still recommend this game to others as a mandatory must-play title that will change the way you see video games. And that's something so special, we may never see it again. So here's something else you'll probably never see again. I give Metal Gear Solid, my first ever, 10 out of 10. This very well might just be the greatest game ever made if both my sappy positive side and my stickler critical side can agree that in Metal Gear Solid, we are just a little bit closer to finding the perfect gaming experience. Think we're exaggerating? Well, honestly, I don't care. I spent way more time than I'd care to admit thinking up a reason why not to give out a double 10 out of 10. But nitpicking only made me feel like an orphan complaining about too many sprinkles in his triple scoop ice cream sundae. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Metal Gear Solid in the comments below. Go on, Make me feel alive again. If you think this game's not worth playing just because it's on an outdated console, you're just playing with yourself. Or you could just watch my Let's Play, shameless plug. You know, Bomb, the last couple reviews, your positive side and my critical side agreed a little too well. We gotta shake things up a bit this week. Wait, what are you doing?
Finishing up the new doodle for our next video.
Is that a chibi microwave?
I, don't know.
Better not be the Brave Little Toaster.
It's not the Brave Little Toaster.
Looks like the Brave Little Toaster. It's from an indie game. It's gonna be the first one we get to review together.
It's also a single developer's passion project, so go easy on it.
I don't go easy. I go honest. If you don't like it, then grab a tall glass of reality to wash down that pill. Okay. Well, for better or worse, here's Cave Story. It's not bad. Hey, well, that's good for a game that originally came out in 2004. Must hold up well. Is that why this one's called Cave Story Plus? Yeah, it's been enhanced and reworked more times than Cindy Jackson. Good thing it's ready to put its best foot forward after more than a decade of upgrades, because I've missed out on this one until now, and I've heard good things about it. Which means I'm ready to have them slaughtered by inaccurately overinflated expectations. It's still just one guy making this game. It's insane to expect a single person to expertly craft great gameplay, programming, music, characters, and plot all on their own, so try to be reasonable. Was that a furry just now? I don't know. I'll tell you right now, the gameplay is where Cave Story shines best. Oh, good! Wait, so it's only downhill from here? Not entirely. By the way, the game plays in general just seems to stand out from everything else. In a Metroidvania style, you'll be exploring levels, collecting new items and weapons in order to progress into new locales, taking down the occasional bosses along the way. I really enjoy the idea of how your weapons can level up through those little EXP triangles you get from killing enemies. They max out at 3, by the way. And they'll also level down after you take damage. It's something fresh and new I've never seen before, and it actually plays really well, rewarding the skilled player for their efforts, but not overly punishing the novice players. However, this does have its snags. Once your weapons max out, you become pretty unstoppable, making level progression and bosses a total joke. This game is disappointingly easy in that regard, but something about the way it plays makes it a feel-good kind of easy. But the back of the Switch case calls it super challenging platform shooter action. I'm sure whoever wrote that has never played a video game before, and was probably playing with the controller upside down or something. Wait, but what about the crazy hard secret ending boss? Now that's some intense difficulty. I agree, it's intense stuff. But most players won't ever see that at all. I was nearly finished with the game when a friend told me about the multiple endings. I had already apparently let certain characters die when I could have saved them through convoluted, knowing secrets in advance kind of ways, locking me off from the good ending. Even still, the ending we got was still very challenging, with a tough platforming segment and a small gauntlet of bosses. However, it was a massive difficulty spike from the previously mentioned Easy Street. That's bad level design 101. There was even a bad ending where you could leave the floating island early, but I had no idea it was a bad ending. The way the game set it up for you just made it seem like the next thing you were doing. Also, bad game design. There's lots of gotcha moments in the game where it tricks first-time players into unintended bad consequences for doing good things. You kill a character by checking to see if they're okay from falling instead of ignoring them and leaving them to die. You get locked out of getting the ultimate gun in the game by trading your opening weapon with a character who's trying to help you. And you get a bad ending by listening to your friends. And this was the better part of the game for you? Some of the weapons are just really fun to shoot. The art style of this game keeps throwing me for a loop. Oh, why? I kinda like it. Well, gameplay reminds me of an SNES era game with nice pixel art and animations. but characters are just another thing entirely. Oh, I like the little robot guy you play as. He's a Pokemon trainer with a gun. And he's fighting to save a colony of furries. Yeah, the furries I could have done without. But what's with the random boss and villain design? Some are meant to look cool and menacing, while others are completely stupid. But not stupid enough to be funny, they're just awkward and throw off the charm the game had. While the characters and bosses do seem strange for the sake of being strange. Now that worked for games like Undertale because it was at least consistent with design aesthetics. This game just makes up crap as it goes and keeps every little thought it has, no matter how good or bad. It still looks really good. It does. It's only when an awkwardly drawn furry wants you to feel bad through horribly written dialogue that I cringe and hope nobody sees me playing this game. But it still looks good. It just looks okay. And that was a clear segue, Bomb, suck it up. But it still looks good! This story sucks donkey balls like untimely diarrhea sucks away your chances at a first date. Hold up, sourpuss. The back of the case also says the game has colorful characters and deeply nuanced storytelling. That's some steamy hot gas right there, coming from the same person who probably thinks that Yoshi's Crafted World is hardcore platforming. They're trying to sell the game. Well, you don't lie about it. Besides, how can anything be deeply nuanced anyway? This game's about as subtle as taking a dump on your parents' casket at their funeral. Wow, nice. You play as a young cyborg exploring the land and protecting its inhabitants, the Mimiga, from a crazy doctor who's aiming to transform them into monsters using magic red flower petals. You honestly said that with a straight face. Didn't even throw up a little in your mouth there with that one. Problem is, you're not wrong. That is the main plot. Come on, you couldn't have been expecting much with this story. It's called Cave Story! Fine! You know what? It's atrociously amateur writing with one-dimensional characters and a plot so childish, grade school fanfics put it to shame. The story has absolutely no idea what it's doing, as events and bosses are shoehorned into the extent that the story can't make up its mind of what it wants to be, so instead it fails at everything. Characters were designed in a vacuum with zero idea of how they would actually develop or advance any real plot had it even existed. The dialogue sounds like it's coming from a single lonely, talentless quack who's never once spoken to an actual human being before. The closest thing to a character arc comes from an animate toaster, irrelevant to the story, and villains are shallow, unimportant mooks who can all be made Mad Libs around with any other token generic bad guy in history, especially the actual final boss characters! Write your story to move your characters and never the other way around! Show, don't tell! Be consistent! And for the love of God, if you recognize that storytelling isn't your strong suit, have some friends look over your work or hire an editor before you have the absolute audacity to call your game Cave Story! I broke him. I finally broke him. I lied before. The music just might be the best part of this game. Yeah, it's good. I'm not even sure if the background music itself or the awesome weapon sound effects are more satisfying. Yeah. Pew pew! Sounds nice. Get a grip, Bomb. You said so yourself. This is a single developer who we can't expect to be an absolute pro at everything at once. Yeah. And even though I couldn't find a good thing to say about the actual story, this is one person who still created an amazing Metroidvania to play. It looks nice and has a killer soundtrack. There, you feeling better now? I think so. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with a positive gamer being upset with something every now and then, right? Exactly. So now's a good time to mention that several of the tracks really got on my nerves after a while. And I'll tell you in which cave you can stick it. If you're into unique gameplay and a catchy score, then you'll be pleased to hear that they were good enough for me to play this through to the end, and recommend it for fans of the genre. Are you 12? If you're into indie games, platformers, or Metroidvanias, this isn't a bad game to sink a good 6 or so hours into. Wait, it's that short?
If you're good, it'll only take you around 3 or 4.
The game's like $30. It's like your game charging you $10 an hour just to play it.
Hey, come on, this is the sell it section.
Oh, sorry. Does anybody want to buy my copy?
Dude! The positive gamer in me honestly did enjoy my time with Cave Story, giving it a shiny 8 out of 10. Sure, I laughed at the pitiful writing and story, but it never kept me from having a good time blasting everything to smithereens. Though I wish the difficulty curve were, well, an actual curve rather than a plateau, the game still played really well right up into the very end.
The critical gamer in me feels like a douche for disliking Cave Story so much, but I will still give it my honest rating of a 4 out of 10. The game's many shortcomings kept me from replaying and enjoying the good parts to their fullest, and discouraged me from even powering on and completing the game on several occasions. With a score of a 4, I wasn't even halfway impressed.
Wow, that's quite a discrepancy.
Hey, you're the one who went on a rant about how bad the story was.
But I can't let something like that tarnish all the good this game did bring forward. I am the positive gamer after all.
Glad to have you back, you wide-eyed dimwit.
So let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Cave Story Plus in the comments below.
If you're overblowing a game to your friends just because it's made by one person,
or if you can't look past one flaw in a game to give it a break,
or even critically analyze someone else's honest point of view,
you're just playing with yourself.
Yay, I'm included!
Quirky enemy robo cyborg titties!
Excuse me?
So now that I have your attention, would you be interested in playing another JRPG?
Bait and switch me like that, I swear.
Now hold on, Kim really wanted us to play this one. It's a lesser known classic from the PS2 called Xenosaga.
Oh, come on! Isn't that a trilogy? That's gonna end up being 3 whole videos!
Yeah, right. It'll have to be 3 videos.
This is the Monolith team who created Xenogears and Xenoblade, right?
Yup, it's also before Bandai Namco swooped in and scooped them up. That happened in 3. And you'll also be able to tell the difference in budget. Even still, episode 1 turned out really nicely.
Well, I guess we're gonna try out one of Kim's favorites. Let's see what's so great about Xenosaga and if it's still worth hunting down.
She's been asking for this one for quite a while now, so she'll be really excited. Kim's a big fan of watching us playing with ourselves. Oh, no! I just realized what that could mean! Why did we call the show Playing With Myself? We gotta change the name before somebody gets the wrong idea. How is YouTube not taking us down yet?
So, Hamster, what do you think? You've just been staring blankly at the game for hours. Sorry, this intro is really taking a while to move on. Also, there's a tremendous amount of lore and information to catch up on.
This is just part 1. At this point, you should just roll with the punches. Part of the aesthetic of the world is how much attention everything has been given. There's nothing wrong with appreciating that it's there, but zooming right by it.
I'll check back in the database 5 questions, I guess. Hold on, is it just me, or is this game mostly cutscenes in the beginning?
Yeah, sorta, but it'll pick up. Both in terms of gameplay and in more action-y cutscenes. The game just needs to teach you about the world first.
This is borderline Metal Gear Solid 4 levels of cutscenery, where gameplay is just brief moments of running to the next cutscene.
Grab some popcorn and get comfy. We are straight up watching a 50-hour movie.
Most of the time in this game, and especially in the beginning, you're watching cutscenes.
I'm great at those parts.
Then, outside of turn-based combat battles, you'll usually be running around ships and talking to people. You're wandering around these quiet, stagnant areas until something happens.
The combat is actually pretty unique in that it allows you to see whose turn it'll be well in advance, allowing you to strategize your party better. I do really dislike turn-based combat, but that little strategy element makes it a lot more interesting. However, had the game been on a single generation of hardware later, I'd no longer find it excusable. Fortunately, Xenoblade went for action-based combat instead. Other than fights, there's still puzzles and stuff on your way to the next cutscene, and those puzzles suck. They're just time wasters stalling the game out. Nothing is ever challenging, just tedious. Yeah. But anyway, the game also lets you go backtracking to past areas to find previously inaccessible goodies and stuff. Since it's a story-based game, this would be impossible, so you use this giant VR machine called the UMN to do it. Enemies don't change levels there, so don't expect a level grind in the UMN. Granted, you won't really need to in this game anyway, but still, for PS2, your encounters are shown in the overworld, and you can approach them from behind and even paralyze them for advantages in battle. That's good to see considering how much it adds to the strategy of the game. Otherwise, the entire game might slump into a walk forward and press the circle button game. If that's all you were hoping for, then you'll love all the dialogue and cutscenes. Best game ever! Normally I get really weirded out by people trying to do the anime-styled characters in 3D, but something about the age of this game makes it look fine. What? Well, okay, I can get that some games like Persona can be a little jarring between gameplay and animated cutscenes, but this is all 3D. No, I'm talking about hardware limitations. Animated 3D characters back then couldn't be very detailed anyway, and this hits a perfect middle between cartoony and as good as we could get. I kind of think they look good with the sprite work you see in battles too. Had they tried to make everyone realistic with this hardware, like many others at the time tried, they'd be hitting an uncanny valley in all the wrong ways. Enemies, characters, and environments all look good. Nothing's too bland or off-putting. Everything seems to fit and feel right in the world. It slightly predates the Brown era of games too, so it's also bright and colorful. It's a shame most environments are still a little on the dull and bland side. The game's appearance is down 5%. Hamster, the disc needs to be cleaned. At least they went to the lengths to model new battle arenas for each area of the game. It's something we've come to expect from all competent video game developers anymore. Was that a Game Freak jab? That was a Game Freak jab. There's a lot to say here. It's a full-on JRPG after all, even though it is just episode 1. The story takes place in the very distant future where humanity has populated a tremendous amount of space, and space travel is as commonplace as driving to work. You start as Shion, a chief executive employed under a massive company called Vector, working on developing an insanely powerful battle android war machine codenamed Cosmos. Your ship is attacked by a strange otherworldly alien threat called the Gnosis, and Cosmos suddenly awakens to protect Shion. But due to the Gnosis's other dimensional abilities, only Cosmos has the ability to damage them by tearing them out of their neighboring dimension and into ours by the use of her weird head pulse attack thing, the Hilbert effect. Ship goes boom, but Shion and Cosmos survive, to be later picked up by a group of space looters. They stay with this group while political turmoil and various enemy factions attempt to hunt them down or hinder their progress on their way to a safe haven planet, Second Milsha. They meet up with several new faces who join your party along the way, each with their own problems and reasons for assisting your growing band of survivors. If you've played literally any JRPG before, you already know this song and dance. It is so much more complicated than that. The developers put an absolutely absurd amount of work into figuring out how practically everything in the galaxy works in about 4,000 years, down to the new way to calculate time, simulate weather conditions on spaceships, and forming government and radical extremist groups. Imagine if someone from 4,000 years ago was suddenly able to walk around in our world today. Assume they understand English perfectly for some reason, but literally everything else they'll experience will feel foreign and bizarre. That's what it feels like being in the world of Xenosaga. And I'm not sure that's a good thing. Oh, come on! And I look at it, I'm just amazed with how much effort went into sculpting the world.
It's impressive and all, but that doesn't help when I feel completely out of the loop on conversations I'm not sure I'm supposed to understand at all. You'll need to look up a lot in order to really stay with it and not get completely lost. Even if you don't want to pay it much attention, it's still a story where you get to play as a frighteningly heartless and absurdly powerful android who can straight up manifest sword arms and Gatling guns out of thin air. Cosmos even gets an interesting self-sacrificial character arc here, as her programming begins to grant her an unintended yet real personality. Through blips in her usually cold character, we get a glimpse into a sad and lost woman searching for something to keep her from feeling incomplete. But if you're not into that stuff, she's also packing a couple of Mondo Robo-Knockers. But can she kill anybody with them? Not until episode 3. But she can. But she can! It's a fully orchestrated soundtrack that you'll be able to recognize if you're familiar with Xenoblade's music. Yeah, some tracks are great, but there's still a ton of environments and cutscenes where nothing plays at all. What's up with that? At least each new environment has new tracks and battle themes. None of them ever got on my nerves or anything either, so it doesn't annoy me. Man, guess that's good enough. If you're a fan of Xenoblade at all, you gotta check out Xenosaga if you still have access to a PS2. If this wasn't enough cleavage for you, just look at Ziggy. If you prefer games that you can spend countless hours playing and discovering a deeply developed world complete with lore and fleshed out characters, then this one might surprise you with its content. Do you shamelessly emulate games? Well, lucky you, because this series is rare, expensive, and only on the PS2. You filthy pirate scumbags. Walk the plank, you dirty landlubbers! The positive gamer in me had a great time with Xenosaga, giving it a solid 8 out of 10. Sure, the game has some lulls and drawn out bits, but in the end product doesn't suffer much for it. Plus, the story and ending of part 1 are good enough to stand on their own without 2 and 3. All in all, I enjoyed the ride and recommend it as a generally forgotten title. The critical gamer in me reluctantly gives Xenosaga a 5 out of 10 for practically being a super long movie with generally slow-paced gameplay spliced in between. This game can be enjoyed to nearly the same degree simply by watching all the cutscenes online. That's not great, but it's still a solid game, as long as you're willing to accept more watching rather than playing. So is Kim crazy for being a fan of this fossil? How do your positive and critical sides rate Xenosaga Episode 1? Let us know in the comments below. But if you're overselling the game just because of a pair of cyborg anime boobs, you're just playing with yourself. I get it now! I'm choosing the game this week, Bomb. Been thinking about this one for a while now. It's another supposedly perfect game. It always bothers me when people just willy-nilly give out 10 out of... Oh my god, that was fast. Yes! Already done with the whiteboard. You have no idea how long I've had this idea in my head. Your big idea is a Korok hidden in Zelda's butt? Well, I'm sure I'm gonna say something all clever like, you've gotta search every nook and crack to find all 900 Koroks, or something like that. We are covering what some people call the game of the decade, which I'll fight them on, and you're over here thinking about butt jokes? Well, I mean, come on! That butt's tighter than Solid Snake's buns of steel. That's some gluteus to the maximus right there. That butt is in like 12 frames of one cutscene. I don't think it needs that much attention. Did you know that Korok seeds are actually their little golden poops? And well, now, by making a Korok hide in a butt, I have just put the poop back inside of the butt. It's genius. You know, I always thought that older Zelda games just had some indescribable quality to them that the new ones just never had. But this game feels different. In Breath of the Wild, the developers finally took the game back to its roots by setting the player loose in a massive open world, letting them explore at their own pace. The beginning learning curve is very challenging on the opening Great Plateau, but once you get the hang of it, the game plays really well. You can watch me fumble my way through the beginning, all the way up to the final boss, the DLC missions, and every single shrine in the game in my extensive Let's Play series, shameless plug. This game really doesn't teach you much of anything at all, and in that sense, it feels a lot like those old Zelda games I loved so much, but it plays so much better with so much more content to explore. But it can't all be sunshine and rainbows. I started this video with a butt joke, and I intend to clear the room with another. Why? What do you... Oh, come on! There's a lot to say here considering how huge the game is, so let's divvy this up into pros and cons. Bomb? The open world feels very natural and free, especially once you get the ability to paraglide to any point on the map after the tutorial. However, it has its restraints. Rain prevents you from climbing, lightning prevents you from equipping metal, and Rivali's Gale completely subverts nearly all overworld level design by letting you fly right over it all. These just make exploration less fun and add nothing. You'll uncover shrines, which are like mini temples, allowing you to fast travel and solve a puzzle or two to acquire a spirit orb, 4 of which will let you gain a heart container or a stamina vessel. But you can't max them both, even with the DLC, which is extremely annoying to perfectionists. Granted, it never matters anyway, considering how overpowered Link becomes in this game. For the first time in Zelda history, you'll be collecting and upgrading various armor parts with skills and defense values. You'll also be gathering ingredients on the fly and cooking your own meals for health and skill buffs, rather than collecting simple hearts and blue potions. But with tons of gear adds tons of time sifting through your ever-growing inventory, swapping outfits, and eating meals while paused. This adds nothing to the game but more time spent in menus, and does nothing but diminish the game's difficulty as Link lugs around an entire Macy's clothing department and a freaking farmer's market in his pockets. Link will be taking down 4 main temples before venturing to Hyrule Castle and defeating Ganon. Though you can ignore all of that and just bomb rush the big guy with your opening 3 hearts armed with nothing but a stick if you felt like it. But those 4 temples are disappointingly short, and all have shoehorned short story segments that add nothing to the plot as a whole. You can complete a ludicrous amount of side quests for characters from all over the map. The real beauty in the game is just naturally stumbling on different things as you go, as everyone's playthroughs will be different. Though open and free, the fear of stumbling on a dangerous area drops immediately when you realize you can always pause all combat, change gear, eat as much health and stat buffs as you want, and even fast travel away with literally no consequences. Your final boss fight with Ganon will get easier with the help of the 4 freed Guardians and makes for a climactic final battle. He does, however, require the player to know and be able to pull off a move the game never taught them. Also, his second phase is a complete joke and makes it feel pretty anticlimactic after your first epic battle. There is so much to do in this game. It could easily sink upwards of 200 hours out of your life. Now that is certainly not a bad thing. But it can be if you get tired of doing the same things over and over again. Now, to some, exploration never gets old. But when the world doesn't have quite enough variety to fill its ludicrous space, then it'll start to drain on you eventually. The DLC adds a surprising amount of content, complete with a new temple and a unique series of side missions. It's definitely worth getting for that. And having access to Hero's Path and Master Mode. Master Mode, unfortunately, isn't difficult at all to an experienced player, due to how breakable this game is with pause cheesing and teleporting. I beat every single shrine and temple and Ganon again before realizing Master Mode, this game's crazy hard mode, never killed me, even once. And possibly best of all, Link cross-dresses as a woman and loves it. There's a ton we didn't have time to mention here because the game is simply too huge. And that, I'll give you, is not a problem. Zelda's butt, talking about the gameplay, Damn straight we are. I gotta say, at first I was really bummed they were keeping the cel-shaded look after all the tech demos through the years after Skyward Sword assaulted our eyes, but this isn't bad. I really love how cinematic the sunrises look through the mountains. The skyboxes have the potential of being absolutely breathtaking when you reach the right place and time. However, some places are bland to the max. The wrong place and time will give you a dull, washed out series of grays, which only makes the nice places all the more special. Enemy design and characters look okay. Some traditional enemies look great, all matching an aesthetic theme, but some characters just never felt right to me. Zelda games have always been a little weird through the awkward and creepy characters fully fleshing out the world. So I guess like the rest of the graphics, I thought I was gonna be really let down, and in the end, I wasn't. I guess the graphics in this game aren't something you really think about until you stumble upon something really amazing. Just like Zelda's No! There pretty much is no story. That's not true. You get drip-fed story through memories and temple completion. We learn about the 4 Guardians and about what happened to Hyrule 100 years ago. The story with each of the Guardians sucks out loud. They have little to no characterization, nor do any of them have any semblance of a character arc. They're all just token, one-dimensional nobodies. But what they do with Zelda this time is actually really nice. She and Link have this growing dynamic between them that actually changes over the course of the memories as Zelda begins to accept Link not only as an initially unwanted protector assigned by her father, but also as someone to confide in as they journey along together. I do agree, that's much better, but it sure as heck didn't culminate to anything after finally reaching her after defeating Ganon. Here comes the one little spoilery bit if you're worried. 3, 2, 1. All right, spill it, hamster. Literally nothing happens. The game just stops. Oh, come on! It's subtle, but she wonders if this companion she's grown to care for still remembers her after being sealed away for 100 years. And based on how you've played your game, you as a player know the answer to that. It's kind of sad but sweet. But that's it. She has one short line, and that's it. The game just cuts off without any real satisfying conclusion whatsoever. The game just stops. I honestly thought my game was messed up when I first booted it up. The menu is completely silent, and so is the vast majority of this game. It's an artsy choice to reflect the destroyed civilization after 100 years. Plus, it's never really silent with some sort of piano melodies quietly playing in the background. Some of the piano themes are really nice. The exploration themes can be soothing and make the journey feel organic. Battles are also really energetic in comparison too. Oh man, heading to Hyrule Castle and getting the original themes from Link to the Past era just gave me goosebumps. Plus the themes seamlessly transition between indoors and outdoors as you explore. I only wish more of the game had moments like that with the music. There's very little to stumble upon that we can recognize from other Zelda games, other than a few monuments, none of which carry their own thematic music like Hyrule Castle does. Yeah, but it makes the Temple of Time and the decrepit Lon Lon Ranch just feel dead and forgotten. And that's the point. The only real action is at the castle. But for the hundreds of hours you'll be spending out in the wilderness, you won't be irritated or anything by the subtle music. It feels more like an improv track than anything, keeping it feeling fresh, but also perpetually unhummable. I don't know how I feel about that. Me neither. Do you own a Nintendo Switch? It's probably because of this game. But if by some happenstance you still haven't played Breath of the Wild, why? Like seriously, why? If you're into maximizing a bang for your buck in terms of gameplay hours to game cost, then this might be one of your best picks for the Nintendo Switch. If you're one to get distracted easily, then you might want to steer clear of this game. You will never put it down. If you're one of the 12 sorry saps in the world who bought a Wii U, I've got great news! There's finally something to play on it! The positive gamer in me loved Breath of the Wild to bits, giving it a strong 9 out of 10 for breaking away from a stagnating Zelda formula and getting back to what made the series good to begin with.
It plays well with tons of things to do, but still has a handful of quirks that keep me from handing out a perfect score. Hopefully, the sequel can build upon this foundation and raise the game to new heights. The critical gamer in me struggles to look past this game's many flaws, but is still willing to give it a solid 7 out of 10. The graphics, music, and story can lull to a mediocre meh at times, but the gameplay itself holds up this circus tent well enough to just take them all in stride. This game is great, but don't kid yourself and pretend that it's perfect. Though I love this game, it's not even my favorite Zelda game. This is also the case where the longer you play the game, the more evident its problems will become. It's great, but not perfect. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Zelda Breath of the Wild in the comments below. If you believe a game must be perfect just because it gets 10 out of 10s online, you're just playing with yourself.